Welcome to the fourth part of module 1, that is welcome to the DevOps universe. So here we are going to discuss about various stages in DevOps. We'll look into the continuous flow of the DevOps. So here just look into the picture that is present in your screen. So on top shelf, that's a red shelf where all our processes, there we'll find a process flow, and at the middle shelf we will have an artifact registry. It's like a server where we will store our artifacts, or where we'll push our artifacts. And then the bottom shelf, where our testers and system admins are going to work, and then majorly the feedback. And just look down here at this part, at the most bottom part of your screen. Here we have a convention for a conventional representation of various symbols, and so blue is for the push, and then red is for the pull, and manual step for integration is yellow, and manual step for delivery is green, and manual step for deployment here is dark blue, and manual feedback is dark red. So now let's begin with development development of the same project, that health issues app. Now to set up all code, first let us our system admin will set up a server for storing the code and controlling the version of it. So that server we call it as a code repository and version control system. Okay, once the server is set up, now it is time for developers to develop the code and push it into the server. Let's see how they do. So we have the developer one, and the developer one has written some modules of the health issues app. Now he has pushed that code into the code repository and version control system. Then we have developer 2. Developer 2 has to pull the code from the code repository and version control system. So he's pulling the code. Once pulling is done, he has developed some part of code. He has integrated that part of code into the existing code, and then he has pushed the complete part of code back to the code repository and version control system. This is how every developer every developer is going to have the complete piece of code of that health issues app. So now developer one also is going to pull the changes that are done by the developer 2. So almost we have completed certain modules of health issues app. So development process is done for now. So now we will move on to the another stage. So before we are moving on to the another stage, system admin, he has to set up a server. He has to provision one server, and inside that server we have to configure with certain tools. Nexus, for example, artifact registry, we will use Nexus. So he has to install that Nexus, and he has to set up that server. We call that server as a artifact registry server. So we have set up that server. Then we will move on to the next step. So this is an integration step. It is after development, it is an integration process. In integration process, we will use Maven or some other kind of tool. Basically here what we do is, we will do some unit tests of the source code, and then once source code is tested with unit test, and if it passes the gates, then it can be moved to the building stage. We will build, uh, basically we use Maven tool, and Maven tool will build this. For that, again we can use a server, build server. We will have a build server, and in the build server we will install Maven tool, and then after that we'll use mvn install command to build the artifact. So once that command has been executed, what you get is in a package. That package or artifact are an archive in .or format, if it is a Java exam, if it is a Java application. Anyway, health issues is a Java application, so that's the reason we are going with the Maven tool, and our package is ready. Now it's time to put this, publish this, push this package into the artifact registry. So now we are pushing this package back into the artifact registry. So now you have a safe place to store your packages. That is our artifact registry. So your integration part of DevOps is done. Now it is time for delivery. So, but before you deliver it, you need to do some tests. You need to do user acceptance test in various environments. So that is the reason. The next thing what we are going to do is our system admin is going to set up a test environment. Test environment is nothing but he will provision a server. Once the server provision is done, he will install all the tools that are required. Maybe I want to use SonarQube or some other tool, so he will install that tool inside that, and with that we have built a test environment. Once test environment is ready, now our package artifact registry, the package that we have built, the archive that we have built using Maven, that will be pushed, or that will be pulled by the testing environment to do the tests. And in addition, at the same time, you can also do the user acceptance test. For that, system admin will set up a one more server, and he will install the required tools, and then that's called configuration. That's what we call it as a configuring the server. Once configuration is done, we will have a quality assurance personnel. He will do user acceptance test on that application that has been packaged, and then he will give that feedback back to the developer if there are any changes to be required. So you will have a quality assurance 2 or 3 personnel who will be working on that. Whatever observations they have made, all observations will be put into the developer 1 and developer 2, and then those guys will do the required changes to uh, to make sure a proper functionality of our application health issues app. So now we will move back into the test environment again. So in test environment, we will write some ready to ship tests, such as dev tests, regression tests, performance tests, compatibility test. Dev test is nothing but so you add some comments or a few more pieces of line to the code, and you build it again, and you check it whether it is working properly or not. This is a common test done by the DevOps guys. And we'll check the compatibility, performance, and the regression test. Compatibility, whether it fits with that certain environment or not, and performance, at what speed it's working, and everything. These kind of tests we will do. We'll write the cases and we will test it one by one in test environment. Once all tests are done, if that package, if that application, if that archive successfully passes through all tests, then we will promote it back to the artifact registry, saying that this has passed all the tests, this is healthy, this can be useful. So now from here we will move on to the staging environment. Again, staging environment will set by the will provision and configured by the system admins, and then we will pull this package archive into the staging environment from the artifact registry server. But now you might get, what is testing environment, what is staging environment, why we are doing all those things. So just within 2 or 3 minutes, I'm going to explain the difference between the testing environment and then staging environment. Before that, first we will look into the what is testing environment. A testing environment involves creating a space that lets you to perform test executions of your component parts. Note this point, keep in your mind, component parts. Every application will have a components, whether it is front end or back end, it will have a components. If you take the front end, the client facing one, you will have a header, you will have a footer, you will have a carousel, you will have a gallery, you will have a login. So all those are components of the application. Now in testing, what we do is, a testing environment involves creating a space that lets you to perform test executions of your component parts, individual component, not together. So the test environment includes both the software and then hardware you're running it on. So your testing environment is therefore very specific and not one size fits all. It varies. If it is Python app, it should be a different configuration. If it is Java app, it should be a different configuration. If it is Golang app, it should be a different configuration. If it is R app, it should be a different configuration. So that's how your testing environment works. Now, what is a staging environment? You have seen what is testing environment, and now the staging environment is, it is set up that replicates your production environment. That's it. That's your staging environment. So in short, it is an identical replica of your product. You should not be able to find any differences between your staging environment and your final product. But unlike your final product, it's not for the public domain. It is only for the do some user acceptance test in staging area, but it should replicate exactly as a production environment. Now let's see a few major differences between staging environment and then testing environment. Now if you see, a staging environment duplicates the production environment to test the product, whereas test environment helps to test a particular part of the product. Again, I'm repeating it like a broken tape recorder, to test a particular part of the product. That's what the test environment do. And whereas staging environment should be able to replicate all the requirements and correct configurations of the production environment, whereas test environment requires a different configuration and data setups. Thus it has no such thing as one size fits all setup. Now, and the staging environment is setting to examine the complete product together, whereas the test environment is an environment to test individual components. In a staging environment, the complete product is tested under the real conditions, and while in a test environment, the code dictates the setup of the environment. So this is the major differences between the test and then stage environment. I hope you got the point. So let's move ahead. So now we are still in delivery. We have finished with development integration. We are in delivery stage. So now during the staging environment, again we'll write some tests that should be done, and then once the package or archive passes through the all the tests that are written in staging environment, then it will be put back to the artifact registry. We say this is healthy and it is gonna work in production. So the trial run is done. Now it is time to put into the production. So what's left next is to create a production server. The system admin uh, provisions and configures the production server. Once that is done, our application will be unpacked or untarred, and that unpacked application will be put into the production server. Hence this can be used by the external world. So a production server is nothing but exposing our application, our healthious application into the to the external world. So with this, we have finished with development, integration, delivery, and deployment. But what we have done here, everything we have done it as a manual step. No automation is involved here. Whatever we have done, everything is absolutely manual, absolutely manual. Anyway, don't worry. Coming ahead in our courses, in our next modules, we are going to do each and every act, from developing, then to pushing into the GitHub repository, then building, then doing unit tests, then building archive or package, then setting up the test environment, then pushing it into the test environment, and then user acceptance, then writing the tests, and then creating a quality gates, and then testing it. Once it passes the quality gate, then we'll publish it into the artifact repository. Then from there we'll set up the staging environment. Then we will move on to the we will import that whole package, and then we will untar that package, and we'll put it into the server using a service, and then finally we will expose it to the external world using URL, using a specific domain. All those things we are going to do in this course. So that's why don't skip in between, just continue with me. You are going to get a huge, just for free of cost. I don't want anything from you other than just focusing on the course content. That's it. That's it. Nothing else I want. Nothing else I want. I spent huge amount of my time, though I'm pretty busy with my projects in this company, in my Volvo company. Still I am spending huge amount of time to bring up a excellent content, so that many people who are aspiring to become DevOps and then ML ops or ML engineer can learn it interactively or intuitively. So that's the reason I'm doing it. Just support me in this. That's it. Okay, so with this, we will move on to the next stage. That's where we will use Jenkins, and we will automate all the processes. One click, all things should be done. That's what we are going to build in our next slide. Just be with me.